Well, hello, commercial streams. We're setting up right now. Mr. Dominic is en route. We're doing a double coder. We just got done watching a few clips on the Jupiter Tube, and I thought maybe we'd chat about the new Android logo is out. New goodies in Android, and there's the new logo. It is kind of like an upside-down Apple logo with some worms sticking out of it. The Verge writes, Google is releasing a grab bag of updates to its mobile apps and services, including updates to its at-a-glance Google Assistant widget, enhancements to the Lookout visual accessibility app, and Zoom calls in Android Auto. Whoa, how about that? Now you can take your meetings while you're driving. What could be great? It's all anticipation of Android 14's imminent release. There's the new at-a-glance widget, if you're watching the video. It looks very fantastic. Oh, good. The yard folks are here. Oh, good. You hear that? Oh, that'll be good. That'll be good for the show, especially since we're doing a double. That'll be fantastic. All right. Are we going to get a content ID for this? There's always more to life. And there's always more with Android. Yeah, that's part of the problem, guys. AI image descriptions. Follow-up questions. Yeah, right. Okay. It's a low budge. Slow budge. All right, get ready. Coder Radio is going. I invite you to join our chat room. Coder.show/matrix to get the quick link there. We got the title bot going. Mr. Dominic's en route, and a double's coming up. What more could you ask for? Let me go close up some windows and stuff to try to kill out the noise. I'll be right back. Yeah. Another story that's brewing this morning. Don't really plan to talk about it in Coder, but I might go more into detail in office hours if there's details to be had. But the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Spotify's $1 billion bet on podcasting isn't working out. Pod News has some coverage of it. And I'll play you a little spot of that while we set up this morning.
Spotify's $250,000 podcast episodes. From Radio Days Asia in Kuala Lumpur, the latest from podnews.net with AdvertiseCast. The financials behind Spotify's podcast strategy is the subject of a deep dive in the Wall Street Journal. We learned some shows cost up to $250,000 per episode during Dawn Ostroff's time at the company. We also learned that Science Versus has seen its audience doubling and listening hours increasing by 60% since no longer being exclusive, and that Trevor Noah is earning $4 million in a deal that's more equitable for the company.
There you go. They're losing a lot of money over there. You can find more at podnews.net. He does a great podcast over there on the podcast news of the day. And then, unfortunately, the Wall Street Journal has a paywall. So, God, look how obtuse that is. Just boom, right in your face. You can't even look at their article. But it seems like that whole bet on, it's just like they're not making enough money. You know, you spend $250,000 making a podcast. What do you expect? Jesus. Now they say, well, in retrospect, it seems irrational. But then an employee jumps in and says, well, here's a correction. For those of us that were in the new, it just seemed irrational all along. We said so. Yeah. problem is that Spotify claims they have 5 million podcasts, but the reality is probably less than 500,000 of those podcasts are active, which is still a lot of podcasts. But it ain't the 1 million or 5 million that they claim. So it's kind of good to see this sort of go on the decline. I think too they're probably suffering from the adpocalypse as well. So not only are they spending a ridiculous amount, but their memberships can't be covering that cost alone. So they're trying to do advertising, but and I think the controversy around Rogan hasn't helped either. I think they made the right call, but I don't think it's helped their situation. Attorney generals in all 50 states are urging Congress to study how AI can be used to exploit kids. They're worried about AI kid pornography, and they want legislation to pass that protects the children.
Oh boy.
Hello, Mr. Dominic.
Hello.
This morning, prosecutors in all 50 states urge Congress to strengthen tools to fight AI child sexual abuse and pass legislation to protect the children from AI generated porn.
Okay.
Spicy?
I guess. I mean, I feel like didn't they just try something like this or?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I got some. Yeah. We can get.
Yeah.
We got some shows to do. How you doing over there?
Yes.
You ready to
I am
rock and roll?
good. I got my tea. I'm just arranging my windows, but I'm ready to rock.
Okay. All right. Let me arrange some windows too. And let's see. Chat room, it's now in your capable hands. You must bang suggest because we need a title. The title bot is open. So you just got to be in that chat room, coder.show/matrix to get in there. And then you just do a little bang and a title, 3 words or so. Here, I'll do a little example right there. Boom. I just suggested a title. Okay.
Just gonna give it to you.
I think I got that. Oh, yeah, right. I'm glad you caught that. Okay, let's put that in there. Beep, beep, beep. All right, I got everything, I think. I think I am like... I think I'm so good to go. It's just ridiculous. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm so good to go. So, all right, let's hit record.
Okay.
I guess I'm not that ready
Bam.
to go because I didn't. Oh shit! I should grab some water.
Go ahead.
All right, BRB. Sorry about that.
No, not at all. Oh my lord.
And great news is the yard work folks are here and they like to take all day. So.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. All right, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okie dokie. Hello, Drew. How do you do? I have yard workers coming and going. So I may pause. I don't know what I'll do, but we'll see. I've closed up all the windows and everything. All right, let's do our 4 count. 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
All right. Now chat room bang suggest, and here we go. This is Coda Radio, episode 534 for September 5th, 2023. Hey friend, welcome into Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and the business of software development and the world of technology. Surviving the storm and here to podcast yet again, it's our host, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Hello. How are you, Mr. Fisher?
Good. I'm glad you made it. I think it's important the show continues, you know. People would be sad if that was our last episode. So,
That would be very sad.
yeah, glad you made it. However, it seems Visual Studio for the Mac is not as fortunate.
To not make it. No, Old Yeller style, back of the woodshed, bang bang.
Yeah, like already done. Right? Like 2024, August 31st, 2024. So you got 12 months basically.
Yeah, but the IDE we know as Visual Studio for Mac these days has a long and truly painful history. It was originally Monodevelop, which then became Xamarin Studio,
Yeah, right.
and then Visual Studio, and it never got its sea legs. I think a lot of that was Microsoft has just put so much in VS Code. We didn't put it in the show notes, but they just released a kind of a group bundle package called the C# Dev Kit, which basically brings VS Code up and beyond parity with the Visual Studio for Mac. You could argue it already was, right? So yeah, it's kind of a product without a home. I mean, you can do all your Xamarin nonsense, which now really they'd rather you do Maui, which is a whole thing that we don't talk about much because I don't know, they keep rehashing the same idea over and over again. But you could do it in VS Code, and it's fine, and they have proper support. So
I do feel bad though for the handful of dark matter devs out there that were probably using this tooling. I'll pour a little coffee out for you, friends.
Yeah, but I feel like the Venn diagram of like dark matter.NET developers who are running Mac and are actually running Visual Studio for Mac natively is pretty low, right?
Yeah.
That's like 10 guys maybe.
But they really,
I mean,
use
write
the
in if
hell
you
out of
are.
it. Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Right.
let us know. Let us know. That's true.
Like I think maybe more like mono developers, right? People who are like supporting old mono packages for Linux or something might have, or like server side mono stuff, right? Might have been using VS for Mac. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, HBC Morgan really brought the bacon this week. He says, next time I promise it'll be a boost. I was originally going to college to graduate as an automotive repairman. I had some internships in local shops and a fair amount of experience. I found out my college had an InfoSec degree, and I changed my degree that day. But I want to pass along something that I got from the various mechanics when I was interning. Shop owners and even the head of that automotive department of my college would say, quote, your back will be shot by 40. So by that point, you should be working towards owning a shop or specializing in a more static experience work. Like, maybe you specialize in engine rebuilds where you don't move a lot, or you really specialize, or you own your own shop, essentially, because the body gives out. He says, so that was one of the reasons he wanted to switch to tech. Although I think my back doesn't like my sitting all day very much either.
Standing desk, dude. You got to get in on this.
I know. I tried for a bit. I did. I got to try it again.
Do you know what I just got? I actually have to set it up. I got a treadmill for under the standing desk.
Linus Torvalds does that.
I don't think it's a bad idea. That's actually, I think I stole it from him.
I think I could do it with maybe if I had a laptop station. So it wasn't like my main station, but one I was at for a bit. I could see that. He also has a little sysadmin bacon he wants to fry towards the web dev. He says, please don't assume your app will always be served at the root of the domain. Your web app may be put behind a proxy where the URL changes. There are tons of cases where I need to proxy something. And he goes on to admit that, yes, it's more academic web apps that are likely to start out as a thesis project, but it's a real pain when you're doing a reverse proxy. It makes us admins then need to leverage all sorts of on-the-fly rewriting like Apache's mod substitute to rewrite the contents of the HTML, the CSS, etc., just so your web app can handle the proxy. And then finally, to new Linux users, and this one gave me a chill, stop relying on ChatGPT. I'm constantly catching my intern saying, quote, just ask chat when it comes to dealing with Linux issues. I found it often leads them well astray as it just learning via I have found it often leads them as well astray as it just is learning via Stack Overflow based on my logs in a RHEL environment. He says there's also way too many of them trying to do sudo apt-get x on a Red Hat box.
So I think we learned, and not to make light of his issue, but I think we learned that ChatGPT is indeed biased. So we owe an apology to all the people wanting to regulate. It happens to be a Canonical fan.
Yeah. I mean, if you were taking the quantity of Stack Overflow posts, there's probably more Ubuntu ones than.
I bet that's what it is too. Yeah. I remember. So when I was doing Linux back in Ubuntu, whatever it was, 8.10, 9.10, the big flex you noobs like me would get yelled at for is, did you just copy and paste that and run it as root from Stack Overflow?
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
Right. Yeah,
Big deal back then. Well, it still is,
it
but it's
it still
become
is.
like there's so many projects now. Morgan, thank you for writing in and thank you for everything. Listener Mike brought some spice for us too. He says he's been listening to episode 531. He's been working as a developer since 1996. So listen up, kids, because he's got some advice.
Stay a while and listen.
Yes.
I have a different take on the tech stack. TypeScript is nearly perfect.
Whoa, that is some spice. All right.
It's a shame that it transpiles to run on Node.js. If we could just get more compute threads out of it, it would go a long way. Projects like Dino, which promise to improve it, just aren't taking off. Now here's a hot one. Python is garbage. The tooling is getting better, but every time we work on it, we feel the pain. Unless you'll
Do
be
you hear that
using
hissing?
unless you'll be using data heavy, I avoid it. Working with it feels like JavaScript or TypeScript maybe 7 years ago, but it's been around
Whoa.
since the 90s.
Oh, there's just so much here.
Savage.
This is some spicy curry. Okay, so all I have to say, and I actually have a blog post drafted that I keep not finishing because I get too depressed, is this is why WebAssembly needed to take off more in terms of the TypeScript transpiling. I think when he says Node, he really means like transpiling to run on, to run like as JavaScript. WebAssembly would, if it was more properly adopted, effectively solve this problem. And I don't need to link to, because you can Google yourself or DuckDuckGo if you're a Freedom Penguin, all the various benchmarks of the performance characteristics of WebAssembly. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree TypeScript is a good language. I do enjoy working in it. I like Python. I will say there's some janky Python scripts that customers over the years have had. I don't know, to each his own, right?
Yep.
I would suggest if you're going to get into Python and you want to avoid some of the jank, check out something more modern like a fast API, which I know I've recommended a bunch of times, and I still have to thank Wes for, because he's the one who turned me on to it. So yeah, it's all good. And yes, we can all pour one out for WebAssembly. It's not dead yet, but it just isn't. I don't know, unless I'm missing some like big initiative, but I don't see it.
I'm seeing it, but it's slow. Yeah, I'm seeing it, but it's slow. You know,
Oh, we were talking about it how many years ago though?
would never doubt the snake jazz. You know, people love it.
Snake jazz.
That's good, man.
What?
He finishes it up with a hard sell for Kotlin. He says, lately I've been getting more into Kotlin. Great ecosystem of enterprise-ready libraries. Transpiles down to the JVM, which is blazing fast and scales well. And Ktor is fantastic for simple APIs. Spring is great if you need more than Ktor offers. And Kotlin is to Java what TypeScript is to JavaScript. It's easier for newer devs to learn than Java, and it's more fun to work in as well.
Yeah, Kotlin is great. A couple years ago, I did a couple projects in Spring Boot in Kotlin. It was good.
Listener Mike, I really enjoyed that email. Thank you.
Yeah,
I like the spice. Coder.show/contact if you've got an email you want to send into us.
I had to try it. I had to try it on.
Of course, you can also boost the show. Thank you, everybody who supports each production with a boost. You can get a new podcast app at podcastapps.com. Cast-O-Matic on iOS is fantastic. Podverse is cross-platform, which is great for me and GPL, also on the web. And Fountain FM has a super unique discovery and SAT streaming system going on. All of those and more at podcastapps.com. And you can boost in and support the show, and we'll read your message on the show. Or if you want to keep your podcast app, get alby.com. You install that, top it off, and then head on over to the podcast index, and you'll find us over there. And each boost goes to editor Drew, myself, the network, and a portion of the Podcasting 2.0 ecosystem. And you can become a member if that's your game, coderqa.co. We have I guess it's not done yet. We have a Coderly planned, a special Labor Day Coderly for our members, which also has some spicy topics in it that'll be coming out soon. You get access to the Coderlies, plus an ad-free version of the feed. You can get every Coderly we've ever done, plus the new ones. And you support the show at coderqa.co or all the shows at jupiter.party. And thank you, everybody who does choose to support us. So Microsoft has blamed a recent outage on basically everything but themselves. It was really rather embarrassing. Their Australia East Cloud region suffered an outage that was really kicked off. A domino effect was kicked off by what they're calling a power sag, which tripped cooling units offline in the data center, which then just started a whole cascade of issues. And Microsoft, they really kind of pin it on an issue that they had with their automation system. They say, quote, our automation, this is in their own self-analysis, quote, our automation was incorrectly approving stale requests and marking some healthy nodes as unhealthy, which slowed storage recovery. And with the storage offline, they couldn't get to their diagnostic tools to properly diagnose things. So they had to find things that had failed at a hardware level, old school style, by removing one component at a time and discovering what was preventing the servers from booting, because the automation system couldn't properly start the storage system, which had the diagnostic tools on it. So this is really where they're laming the blame. However, the part in their analysis that I find absolutely irresponsible for something that's at the scale of Azure, they had 3 people on site at that data center. Huge data center. And the data center
Yeah.
is so big that it was part of the delay was just the time it took the staff to transit the data center to get around the place in their like little carts and stuff because it's so huge. They say, quote, due to the size of the data center campus, the staffing of the team at night was insufficient to restart the chillers in a timely manner. The report goes on to state, quote, we have temporarily increased the team size from 3 to 7 until the underlying issues are better understood. And then they're going to roll back to 3.
But will they call themselves the Magnificent Seven?
No, they're going to be the Lonely 3.
Los Tres Caballeros.
The other thing that they just kind of brush off is they didn't have any procedures for this particular scenario.
They don't need them. It's fine.
They only had 1 chiller working. They needed 5, right? They couldn't get around all the systems to get them online in time. They couldn't get to their diagnostics. Their automation system failed them. How many times does it go down like this, where we hear like the automation system was out, so they couldn't get the rest of the system up? They never learn.
Yeah.
But
they never
3
learn.
people, Mike. I mean, people are paying how much for Azure, and Microsoft can't staff 7 full-time there at this data center?
Oh, they're paying. That's, this is one of those things that is kind of funny, but also great if you're in this business, because you could be like, hey, listen, even Microsoft goes down. So,
Yeah, what are you going to do? Nothing you can
what are
do,
you
right?
going to do? Well, especially now, if your application's on Azure, this is one of the hardest things to diagnose or to explain to a customer that the underlying infrastructure that you rely on has just failed.
It sounds cheap. It sounds like they're doing it cheap.
Well, it sounds super dumb, right? Like it's not a good situation for anybody. Nobody comes out looking great in these kind of things, because the contractors who presumably have client stuff on these systems are look like fools, right? Microsoft look like idiots, and apparently they still don't want to allocate budget, which you have to kind of admire their just unwillingness to pay for things.
It makes you feel like it's just a margin play for them.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I can't believe only 3 people work at this data center that's so large they can't transit in time to get systems back online. It's just, I don't know. When you think of the cloud and you think of Azure or AWS, you think of a really professionally run operation. But I guess it's like
you don't expect it to arbitrarily crash.
Yeah. Here's another interesting story that's come out in the last week since we got together. If you read the tea leaves, it really seems like Apple is doing some damage control around a low uptake in the Apple Vision Pro SDK. Some concerns were highlighted by Mark Gurman last month, claiming that the developer labs had been underfilled with small amounts of people showing up. And then according to others, it seemed like there hadn't been a lot of hardware that shipped based on where they looked at some of the supply chain stuff for the developer editions. But Apple has tried to come out and address this. They didn't directly come at it, but they said that they've seen, quote, extremely high 3-digit customer satisfaction for the labs that we've run so far. So they're focusing on, well, the people that we have worked with have very high customer sat numbers, and they're kind of dodging the whole not many people are showing up, not a lot of SDKs are getting downloaded, not as many hardware units are shipping.
Yeah, but Chris, those customer sat numbers.
Yeah.
They're glorious.
One direct quote is, Apple is supremely confident that their developers are going to flock to the groundbreaking new device. I don't know, man. You know, the hype's faded a bit. We still have to wonder, how compelled are developers going to be to ship an app on a device that the CEO of the company won't even be caught public wearing?
He's like, this is not entering my face ever.
Right. I mean, if Tim
Right.
Cook's worried about the way it looks, well, then why wouldn't most people be worried about the way it looks?
Yeah, I don't understand a lot about this. I mean, I think somebody emailed, or I think it doesn't really matter. I think they Discord messaged me, but about that we're off on this because it's really like the prototype, right? It's meant for, the Marcos and Elons of the world, um, which are obviously quite a bit different than each other. Rich people is where I was going with that. But like this is not the high volume, high impact play. I guess I kind of see that, but it sure seems like you want to make a big splash out the gate.
Yeah, and these reports, I'll remind you, are not measuring consumer interest. They're
Right.
measuring developer interest, which is who I'd think they'd want to be going after. I
Right.
also feel like if when this thing does ship in 2024, it's going to feel even more expensive than it does now. I just, I really want to see something like this take off, but I'm getting a lot of mixed signals from the developer community on it. And Gurman is too. And Gurman's usually fairly accurate about this stuff. And the fact that Apple won't uh, directly address the concern, but kind of talks around it, that sounds like Appleese for, we're going to focus on where we have success and we're going to minimize where we're having some failure.
Yeah, it does seem like they're definitely circling some wagons on this one. Although who knows, right? See, the problem is I feel like no matter what they're going to say it's sold out because they're just not going to make many.
Well, let me ask you this. If this flops, does this kill the market for VR for a while? Is the Quest going to suffer? Is a blip? Like, I'm trying to think. Is the reaction to this going to be, well, if Apple can't pull it off, no one can?
I think the reaction's going to be less it kills off the market for VR. I sort of think the market for VR is suffering because of the general economy being kind of garbage right now. And the price point is going to be like I could totally see this being something that you see in like, like a status symbol kind of thing,
Yeah,
but most people don't actually have.
man, a
Um,
$500 Apple Vision Air seems like a killer device to me because we own now 2 Quests in the family. My daughters
mm,
just love them, and the real gap they haven't closed is the one that Apple is sort of natively built to close, right? With their own OS stack, their own hardware stack, their own Metal GPU API, their own cameras, all of the experience they have making tiny devices. Like they just have such a home advantage that I kind of think if Apple can't pull it off, no one could. Now, I think the only wiggle room for argument there would be price. Like this is just a ridiculously high priced item, but at $500, this thing seems like a slam dunk to me.
well, but at $500 isn't even feasible, right? Like I don't know. See,
Eventually,
that's eventually, right? Like it the thing the trouble I have with this being like the prototype or the introduction to this kind of market is people change their tastes over time, right? If we've learned anything, a lot of this tech stuff, particularly the consumer side, a lot of it is basically fashion at this point, right? It's about what's in, what's hip, um, and there might just be a new hot thing.
yeah, like saving money.
I think that's a big thing right now, don't you? Don't you feel like people are a little less
They're tapped out.
spendy? Yeah,
The stats show us people are tapped out.
right.
I think it's something like the majority of Americans don't have enough buffer to cover anything over a random $400 expense. Anything more than that, they'd have to put on credit. The problem is
Right.
that also at the same time, credit balances are just kind of maxing out. The Fred charts really show this. We're seeing those both at the same time. I think it's just the ongoing cost of goods being high for a long time. People
Mhm.
like me, I have cars that need gas. I got kids that need food. So like that hasn't changed, but the cost, the things I require have gone up in price. And if something else comes up that's unexpected, you have to absorb that somehow. And I'm
Right.
like, I've already kind of decided, unless I damage my phone, I'm probably not getting a Pixel 8 or an iPhone 15 or whatever it would be that I would buy. I think I'm going to try to wait a
Yeah.
year at
Yeah.
least.
Same. I mean, health insurance costs, food costs, everything is just crazy high. Um, yeah, I don't know what. I guess I don't see a world where a lot of people are just willing to spend $3,500 on this type of thing.
Tailscale.com/coder. Head on over there. Nothing too new to report other than they have really been doubling down on working with Cloud Init, which this is a huge deal because a lot of cloud service providers support Cloud Init, and so you can spin up a totally fresh box and have it authorize and connect to your tailnet. And they have a lot of really slick ways to make that secure. And then you combine that with Tailscale SSH. Then you don't have to copy your keys up first. You just use your Tailscale credentials to log in over SSH. We're combining that here at JB to automatically, you just spin up a box and then it'll appear on Tailnet. That's how it's going to work. It's going to be fantastic. Tailscale.com/coder. We don't need to spend a lot of time on X, or formerly known as Twitter, but it seems like Elon has a plan to make money because he's 44 bill in the hole on this thing, and he wants to turn it into a LinkedIn competitor as well as a Substack competitor. And he's been kind of taking shots at LinkedIn on Twitter, and he's described LinkedIn as cringe, and has promised a hiring feature on X will be, quote, cool. And I think he's right. I think LinkedIn is cringe. I feel bad because people are constantly like, why don't you connect with me, bro? And I've never used LinkedIn. I'm not looking for a job. And so I've never really been tuned into that. But I do find, I don't know, something about it feels needy on LinkedIn. But I think you're a bigger LinkedIn user than I am. So do you think X could pull this off?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I kind of I think that they're two different things, but who the hell knows, right? Everything's constantly changing. LinkedIn being cringe, LinkedIn is, I would say, like an honest prostitute. It is what it is, right? Everybody's there to sell something or to get a job or to climb the ladder or to pretend to be super positive about whatever the issue of the day is. And it's like you're selling, right? I think of it as like the store window to your personality, right? It's the Macy's window on Fifth Avenue of your personality. Is Twitter going to be that? I mean, let's just pull up my Twitter feed. It's probably pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, the Twitter feed isn't great still. I don't know. It almost makes sense to me if you zoom out. So you've got long posts on there, and you've got live streaming, and you've got video hosting. You've got their Hangouts thing that they have, which actually in my feed gets used. People are on those Twitter group chat things all the time. And the experience to listen to them while you're scrolling Twitter isn't bad. It kind of sucks as a video platform, but it's there. And they have what seems to be a pretty aggressive monetization program for content creators on the platform. I think it has a shot at some of this stuff. I think where it really falls apart for me is they also got their money transmitter license. Now, this is an ongoing thing. Twitter has secured money transmitter licenses in Arizona, Georgia, Maryland, Michigan, New Hampshire, and Missouri. But they hope to receive, and they will have to, a transmitter license in all the U.S. states. There's no timeline for those approval, but along with this transmitter license, they've also lawfully extended the service to include crypto payments and trading. And I really don't like that. I mean, maybe sending money over DMs. I guess every chat platform has to have that, apparently. I thought you could already do that. But, man, if they start, like, shilling Doge on Twitter, that's where it ends, my friend. You know what I mean? That's where it ends. Like, that's going to turn
Yeah.
it into a casino.
I mean, I think everything online is going to end up at gambling somehow, right? Gambling and crypto. I just don't see this working out for them. I mean, he's also trying to claim that the Anti-Defamation League somehow, quote, nearly destroyed Twitter.
Yeah, yeah.
which is weird. Um,
Yeah.
I, I don't know, like it's tough, right? I was sympathetic to some of his arguments before he was actually part of Twitter. That like, all this stuff, like, there was such a like one of the fun things about Twitter was what I think a lot of people think is bad at the time, which is like was just an open town square where people could holler at each other and whatever. Um, and then they added, like locking down your DMs probably a good idea, right? Um, but some of this stuff is really weird now. Like, there's a guy I follow on Twitter, and he came up this morning while I was on the toilet because that's when you log into Twitter, and it's like pay $2 to see my tweet, and I'm like, I wouldn't pay $2
No,
to see anybody's tweet,
no.
right?
I couldn't imagine. I know that some people manage to get a bit of a subscriber following. Yeah, and if you enable subscriptions on Twitter, it replaces the follow button with the subscribe button, and then you got to like dig for the standard follow button. And I hate those kind of anti-user patterns too. It's
Yeah,
hostile.
I mean, I don't think the whole Twitter mobbing thing has been eliminated. In fact, just this last week, I know how interested you are in this, Chris. There's a new Magic the Gathering set that was released. I was at the pre-release on Saturday. I know
exciting. Is there a
got my
hashtag
ass.
I can follow on X?
You know what? Just type in "hasn't showered in 3 months" and I think it just comes up. Well, this guy, liberal guy, right? He's on Twitter, and he just like points something out that was weird that somebody had sent him. And I thought the whole point of this was like to get rid of the Twitter mobs, but he just got eviscerated by like a progressive mob.
Sure.
So I'm not sure that anything has been improved other than like there's a bunch of unemployed advertising executives now. And is that an improvement? I don't know.
Well,
Like,
let me ask you a question.
yeah,
Say you are building a new app. Maybe, Madbotter's got a brand new product and you want to build a bit of a following around that product. You want to do some organic marketing. How does an independent shop like yourself, like I'm picturing Eric from our podcast, some of his projects, he's got a
sure.
podcast going, like how do creators that aren't fortunate enough to just have channels to market and are trying to build organic marketing because that's probably the best thing for their budget, where do they go now? And I'm trying to evaluate X from that perspective. And if you're coming at it clean, the platform itself offers a lot of features. And I think the issue with going to like Mastodon and trying to build a following over there where people could ask you and build support
Yeah.
and stuff like that, like it's too fragmented. And you're not going to go to Facebook, and LinkedIn isn't the right place for it, and Instagram isn't the right place for it. So where can you build a following on a platform that is accessible enough that has a network effect where you could maybe have a bit of a customer base, you can interact with your customers? Like every place I've ever worked for has a Twitter account where they're trying to answer questions from users and whatnot, and make new release announcements. And it seems like independent developers especially need an outlet for that kind of stuff.
Oh no, I mean I'm back on Twitter because I actually have two stories about this. Because one, I saw the traffic to my personal site dominicm.com plummet when I stopped using Twitter. It turns out my Jar Jar memes were actually doing something for me.
Good. Oh, good.
Yeah, and I just what is it? 2 months ago, I just tried to, because the Twitter ads are so cheap now. It's ridiculous what you can get, and I would say like 80% of the responses so I woke up and I saw like you have these responses to your Twitter ad in my email. Like, holy crap! Look at all these responses. Almost all of them were people yelling at me for giving Twitter money.
Oh, yeah. That's another thing.
Yep.
There's a blue check rebellion as well. If you get a blue check, people then think
Well, I
you've,
have
like,
the blue
bought in.
check, but I also did a promoted tweet or whatever they call that, a featured tweet, and just the amount of vitriol because, like, I don't know, Twitter equals Nazi somehow. And I've run Twitter campaigns before, and I've never. I mean, you get like the scammers or the people like, yeah, right, probably doesn't work, blah blah blah. I call them alpha geek douchebags, i.e., YouTube commenters. But
It's funny because
this
I think you give them too much credit. I think the term mids is more appropriate.
I just learned about mid from the 15-year-old. Mid is like the meanest thing you can say to somebody.
I know. My kids, my kids, introduced me to mid as well.
Mid savage. I think that should be our reply to anything we don't like. Mid.
Well, it kind of fits because a lot of times, like, people aren't thinking critically. A lot. It's usually an emotional reaction when somebody comes at you with a lot of energy, and so it is usually a mid take.
That's true. That's true. It's I don't know. I'm certainly not going to forgo Twitter for marketing purposes because it works to a point,
Yeah.
right? But
Maybe
the
they turn to
organic stuff.
podcasts. You know what? Out there, if you're an independent developer out there, maybe you should, boost in and tell us about your app. Give it a nice amount so it's,
Yeah.
we get some value out of it and link it and we'll put it in the show notes.
Here come the gambling apps. I think we should just do like a segment every week where it's like the sport. Football starts this week. We should
Oh,
just
yeah?
do like the odds. Just read out the Vegas odds.
Too bad we can't have like some sort of fantasy sports that like involves all the different tech companies. Some sort of like the Apple Vision Pro would be on there as like a long bet.
Well, we almost had it with Elon and Zuck allegedly going into an MMA fight.
Oh yeah, right. Well, I'm sure X will add that, and then we can all bet some dog coins on it. It'll be.
God,
I know.
everything ends with Doge.
Ask not what your podcast can boost for you, but what you can boost for your podcast.
That's why we are grateful that people support the show with their scarce sats. And Mr. Borkenander, I think is maybe how you say it, sent us in 99,999 sats. He is our baller.
Baller.
Yep. Coming in from Podverse saying, good day, Labadine in Latvian, which is pronounced Labdine. Hopefully I got that kind of right. The home of Microtech and healthchecks.io. Oh, we love both those. He says, love the show. Don't know about the rest of you, but listening to it brings me a lot of comfort. Keep up the great work. Oh, all right. I'll take that. Hopefully that doesn't mean we're boring, but I'll take that as a compliment, I suppose. You bring him comfort, Mike.
Yay.
Not a common descriptor that
I don't know. I don't think anyone's ever said that to me before. I've been told to stop talking because I'm making them think about throwing themselves off a bridge. That seems.
Oh, man. Well, Noob Steve doesn't feel like jumping off a bridge. He sent in 74,656 sats using Fountain.
I hoard that which your kind
Uh-oh. He says, let's see if you figure this theme out. Thanks for recommending Google Business. I really, really wanted to hate it, especially after all the Google photo stories, but I just can't. It's too perfect for what I need, and honestly, the apps are the best out of there from the Apple native ones, in my opinion, especially the calendar. I decided to do the website on Linode, though. I tried 2 other hosting services that do everything for you, and it was nothing but problems. And some of them charge stupid amounts of money. Way to go, Noob Steve. Well done, sir. And yeah, I feel you on the Google Apps thing.
Yeah, they're very good.
Yeah, they got you there, right? And it's such a perfect little way to like turn around and take your investment in all the public apps and privatize them. And I mean, it's just the whole thing is very clever.
It's a lot, yeah.
Yeah. Curcia comes in with 45,332 sats using Podverse. He says, if I checked out of tech, I would have done low voltage or marine electrician or a diesel mechanic or marine diesel, but I'm not sure I could have taken the plunge. Oh, low voltage or a marine electrician. I think mechanics are going to have a renaissance. I think it's going to be a golden age for mechanics out there. I don't know what you think, but I think with the price of cars, I mean, a new car is over $20,000. I mean, even a used Toyota with like 50,000 miles on it is ridiculously expensive, right?
I mean, it's anything like that where you're repairing old equipment to be reused. I mean, it depends on if you fry the bacon that Chris and I fry, which is we're going into a big crash bacon.
He also writes, the overlap of Pythonistas and Excel is called an InfoSec vulnerability management program.
There is a company in Tampa that all they do is Microsoft security work. I feel like they're going to be very excited if they're not already.
It's a jobs program. Yeah.
See, and we say Microsoft's evil. They are once again subsidizing the open source community by opening up Excel to a bunch of malware. There you go.
Karen Bug comes in with 27,567 sats using Fountain. My Nix journey has started. There's so many ways to do the same thing, or at least it seems so. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to set up extensions on VS Code. So far, I'm confused. Yeah, so I think they have 2 VS Code options, and I think I did the one that's like the VHS one or something like that. I can't remember. And that lets you just install any extension you want and get access to the whole file system. But it is tricky on those immutable distros. You install something like VS Code, and it's it thinks it's a standard Linux file
Oh.
system, and it's a little out of place. So you do have to be careful. MixZip comes in with 25,000 sats using Cast-O-Matic. If I wasn't in IT, honestly, I'd just love to be a dishwasher at a fine dining restaurant. Why not? It's mechanic, it's dishwasher, it's jobs that are like low.
I was gonna say, we're all just wanting to like stop thinking about this shit now, right?
Yes,
We're all
yes, yeah. That's fascinating insight, and I feel like I totally understand. Um, you want to get to something where like I think too, it's like immediate tangible results, or as close to immediate as you get in a job. You do something that, like, you wash the dishes are clean. You work on the engine is fixed. You wire the lights turn on. And it's 1-to-1.
You know what? I used to work as a janitor, and there was some like weird zenness about being a janitor.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? The bathroom is horrific, but then an hour later, it's not.
Yeah, like,
Right?
I never want to really wash the car generally, sometimes, but not often. But then, by the time I'm done, I'm like, oh man, I'm really glad I did this. Look at that, looks great.
Welcome to old man retirement radio.
Yeah, really, really.
Right.
I love these insights though. Hearing what people would do, that's really great. I'd also like to know if you could stay in tech, but you could shift to a different niche in tech. What would you shift over to? Would you, like we were watching on the pre-show? Bloomberg says that all the jobs that were lost with the tech layoffs, most of them have been snapped up by AI hires. Now they're all working in AI. Would you, Booster? Would you be willing to switch trains like that? Or if you could, which would you switch to? Hannigan came in with 20,000 sats using Fountain, saying monster show. Thanks, guys. And we got 5,000 sats from unknown sender. Serious question. You say all the booster in your infrastructure. What happens if your machine goes down? Womp, womp. Yeah, it's kind of like, what happens if somebody breaks in and steals the cash register or, something like that. So you can do backups, of course. I think at this point I'm kind of comfortable with self-hosted infrastructure, but it is a risk. Now, the way it works is all of the keys in my wallet are derived from a seed phrase. So what I can do is take that seed phrase to another system, input that seed phrase, and then it will regenerate those keys. So you don't.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, because technically the coins live on the blockchain. What you have is the other side of the key in your wallet, right? But the actual coin, that's actually on the blockchain. So you're just storing the keys on your wallet, and that's why you can regenerate them. And then you get access to those keys that live on the blockchain. The gig comes in with a little adorable row of ducks.
Nice.
Sonic Ding. Oh, all right, let's do it, because you know what? We did get there, so stand by. We'll get a Sonic Ding. 14,961 sats from deleted. I did something today I previously thought I'd never do. I unsubscribed from the Coda Radio feed. I'm still a party member and I love GB, but Coda Radio has just become an hour of negativity. I get that AI and blockchain and politics are all negative aspects of the industry, but so many great things are going on that I, as a developer, want to listen to the show, and I don't want to dwell on the negatives every week. The boost amount isn't random. See if you can figure it out. 14,961.
961. 14,961.
Is it a zip code?
No.
No. Okay.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I'm not good at that. That's what I have Wes do. But to the negativity, we got that. We got that a lot back in the summer when we were raising the alarm about the upcoming tech layoffs, and we were really one of the only shows talking about that at the time. And we gave people a good 6 to 8 months heads up what was coming down the pipe, and we definitely got a few emails from people who said, I can't listen anymore. But we did get one person who wrote back into the show later on and said, I'm sorry, I didn't listen to you guys at the time.
Yeah, but that was bad because he got shellacked, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's unfortunately with a show that's so focused on like, the dev related news, and we're in this kind of trough, right? Where there is no, this isn't 2009, 2010, and we're in a gold rush for the iPhone. The AI stuff, I'm actually not negative on the AI stuff, so
Right.
I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Yeah.
But it's not as much of an opportunity for the independent developer as, let's say, mobile was.
And I think, too, there is a space for a voice that has a different take than maybe what The Verge is going to write or what all the other tech podcasts are going to say. Right? There is a counterbalance to a lot of these narratives that we just see go out and they just blow up and then they ultimately pop. And generally there is some real signal in there, and I think that's where our show tries to land. and not so much on the hype side of it. But it does mean that, you know, one show might be really positive on a topic, and we might be a little more cynical on a topic sometimes. But,
Yeah, and we might be positive on things.
Exactly.
For instance, I would argue all the focus on Linux and stuff, we're probably way more positive than your more mainstream.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a balance. Dark Matter Dev comes in with 5,000 sats. First time boosting Decoder. He says he hopes the username trolls Mike a little bit. Oh, Dark Matter PHP Dev.
Mission accomplished. I see it.
I
You know
missed
what? You
that
just
part.
keep cashing those paychecks, you bastard.
Mere Mortals podcast comes in with a row of ducks. Kyron writes, I'm gradually piecing together an idea of open source community and how it works. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're rounding out with Scott and a couple of more. He said, I had a message, but I forgot what it was, so here's 10,000 sats.
That was easy.
Craftnix, 9,999 sats. NeoVim, always. Oh, jeez.
You know what? I don't know where the Emacs stands are, but they are not fighting back. Guys, you got to GNU up. What's going on?
Oh, Meezy's got a question for us. 5,555 sats. Thanks for the podcast, fellas. I'm starting to roll as a senior front-end developer and
Nice.
wondering if you have any advice or insights for what qualities make someone effective as a leader in developing software.
So basically management.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's a senior front-end developer.
Yeah, so I imagine he is like juniors Blum. I don't know. I mean, the two things that I think I had to learn and took me years was don't assume because a junior developer is not complaining in Slack that he or she is okay, because people, especially junior people, have a tendency to not want to point out when they're having trouble because they're afraid that they will get, reprimanded or fired or something. So I would say over communicate, especially with more junior folks. I like some pretty aggressive time gating in terms of blocking out time for specific tasks. It can become a little absurd, right? When you're just like living by like one of those weird stoic Instagram posts, like schedule everything. But some level of that has helped me avoid falling into the pit of like, oh, somebody hit me up on Element, somebody hit me on Discord, Slack, I got this meeting, that meeting. Just saying like turn notifications off the next 2 to 3 hours I'm coding, right? Because I'm sure if you're a senior front end dev, you're still an individual contributor, so you have to actually get your work done too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I would also add, one of the best bosses I had for a project was a gal who would listen to everybody's input on the stack and all like the little things like colors and whatnot, and then would take it all in and have a good gut call on which direction to go, and then we'd make a decision and move forward. But the key was listening, because sometimes there are some good ideas in there that just because we've always done it one way didn't mean it was maybe worth considering. So I know it seems kind of obvious, but I've had so many bosses that sort of have made up their mind when the conversation starts. So I would avoid that. But Beezy, congratulations on the promotion. Keep us updated. Send us in a boost in a little bit and tell us how it's going. I'd love to know. Altera the Blue came in with 10,000 sats. Says, I don't know if I totally agree with you guys and your take on the CISA wading into open source. Oh, yeah, this was a good one.
Yeah.
I read this. So we talked about this last week about CISA looking at throwing around money in open source to help pay for some security patches, but kind of also picking winners and losers in that process. He says, I prefer to look at it with Harkham's razor. They are right. The feds are right that there's not a lot of unaudited code and there's varying quality in the FOSS space that gets blindly applied to larger projects, including government work. And there's always a bunch of ways of throwing around money at a problem that can actually help, from education to code audits to creating, quote, standards. In here, CISA's request as, quote, how can the government money printer help you not blindly accept this code, Raytheon Blackstone, which of course has a different set of issues, but not one of them is vilifying free and open source software. Hopefully we'll get lucky and there will be a monetization path for small developers that this comes from. The media is clueless as ever, but when it comes to how technology actually gets created and rolled out, I don't expect that to change anytime soon. So his core point is, hey, you know what? We'll get some paid developers out of this. We might get some code audits. We'll get some education, and maybe some high-profile institutions will have a little bit more protected code. Maybe it's a net benefit.
Right. So I agree with most of that. The part where I fall off is that the small devs are going to get the money. It seems super likely to me that he mentions he name checks Raytheon, right? That Raytheon will just open a new service line where they, quote, fortified open source. or they'll do your open source audit for you.
Right. Or they'll get the
Um,
funding through, benefits write-offs to hire people to work on open source. So the developers become Raytheon employees.
Well, or they won't be employees, but they'll be a small independent contractors or
Sure,
quote
sure.
companies, so that Raytheon can then say that this percentage of the contract went to a small business, therefore qualifying for a little bit of boost in the bidding process. Trust me, I know a sad amount about how much this works or how this works. Unless you've been in the space, I think it's hard to understand just how much money the federal government spends on quote unquote auditing things in terms of technical audits, and just how eager and skilled the salesmen for these large vendors are at capturing that value. So I mean, it would be great, right, if like the Defense Department just like hired up half the developers for Docker or something, right, half the contributors or whatever open source project we're worried about, today. And Docker is a big company, so they're a bad example. But more like the Rust language, maybe the Navy should just like disband the Rust community and reform it, right, as part of the Navy. I await your emails on that one because I know poking at the crabs is always a bad choice.
Well,
but that's not going to happen, right? Raytheon's going to do it, or someone like Raytheon. So,
and here's the boost I'd like to hear come in is, if not the U.S. federal government, who? Because while I have reservations, right, we just seem unable to solve this problem of developers not getting paid for their work. Like,
right, we've been talking about this since 2012,
yeah,
and we still don't have a good answer.
So while I don't love the federal government doing it, I'd love to hear somebody articulate who or how or what mechanism could do it.
Now, there may be an opportunity in the beginning. Let's just take my Rust example. On like, some of the top Rust developers in the country might be great, and kind of like what you were implying, great candidates for a job they might not otherwise have gotten at like a Blackstone or a Raytheon that pays a lot and has great benefits. But that's not going to last forever. That's going to be something that happens to a select few, kind of like, just, poking all the bears here, but like how the Linux Foundation selectively funds things, kind of like that, right?
Indeed. And very little of it actually goes to Linux.
Right.
Yeah,
so
the stuff around it, I suppose, and other things. Yes. Thank you, everybody who did boost in above the 2,000 sat cutoff. We really appreciate it. In fact, we really did quite great this week. We had 16 boosters, 18 total boosts came in, and the show earned 358,513 sats, which is fantastic. And we're going to set that goal for next week at 300,000. And our questions that, if you're looking for an excuse to boost in, is realistically, okay, so we can't all really just bail out of tech. But what niche would you transition to if the one you're currently in dried up, was coming to an end, the bubble burst? Entertain the idea. What other tech niche would you transition to? And then the other question I'd like answered, if not the U.S. federal government, who could or what structure could step in and fund these free software developers? I mean, I've got my ideas, but obviously, what could we actually do that would fully take off? Thank you, everybody who supported the show via a boost. You can boost with a new podcast app or without switching by getalby.com and finding us on the podcast index. Yes. Yes. And of course, a big thank you to our members. On the live stream, we're going to sit down and record a little special Coder QA.
Yeah.
So we'll have a Coder QA Coderly coming out. We just kind of asked Drew to get to it when he has time, so we don't have a set deadline on it, but it'll be in the queue very soon. So thank you to our members. That's coming your way. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you want to send the good people?
Yeah, I'm at Dumanuko on Weapon X and DominicM.com.
I'm glad you remembered. I forgot.
I can't forget it. So here's a weird thing. Sometimes I log in, it still has the blue, like the blue secondary and tertiary coloring.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Huh. Transitions, man, they're hard.
The CDN is just not cooperating, apparently.
Yeah. It's tricky. You got to update all that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. I'm at Chris Elias on Weapon X, at Jupiter Signal for the whole network, and at Coder Radio Show if you want to follow. That's like where we'll do live stream announcements and stuff at Coder Radio Show. Also, you can find us in Matrix, coder.show/Matrix. That's our live chat going all week and during our live stream. And we do stream on Mondays. No, not Tuesdays, actually. Well, it depends. JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar. Yeah. Go to the calendar. But it'll be noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday or Tuesday. That's all you got to worry about. That's why I just say subscribe, coder.show/RSS. Thanks so much for joining us. See you next week. Thank you, Drew. All right. Now, thank you, everybody out there in the streaming. We got a title, so you got just a couple of seconds left to bang Suggestal if you like. And then we'll vote, and then we'll reset.
Okay.
I didn't see a lot of titles go by. Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna go grab a beverage because I am very parched. Do we have a doc for the other one, or are we just gonna go with...
I do. I'll switch over here in a second. I'll link it in Slack. There's not a lot in there, but there's stuff. There's stuff.
Okay, cool.
We got stuff.
We got it. I'll be right back. And remember, it's Weapon X.
Oh man.
So dumb. It's so stupid.
It makes me think of like an action movie kind of thing.
It's literally Wolverine from the X-Men. That's one of his names.
That's why. Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
God damn it! Now I want to watch The Greatest Showman with Hugh Jackman. Son of a bitch.
I want to watch the X-Men.
Yes, there you go. Also Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. Where did I put that? There we go. All right. Man, with that is slim pickings on the titles. I'm going with Blame the Automation. But that's just because I already have it in the doc. Yeah. All right. So I have a little show prep to do. I got to switch over and export things. So that's what I'm doing here. Now, I have some bad news for the commercial streams out there. Unfortunately, we're going to transition back to Jupiter Tube and JB Live FM for the stream because there will be some materials that we can't play on YouTube, and it is for the members over there, and just don't want that on YouTube public. But we do really appreciate you joining us. I've been posting these on YouTube, but I'd be curious to know if people like that. Leave a comment or a thumbs up over there, as they say, on the old YouTube platform. But it'll wrap up here on the commercial platforms in a second, and we'll continue over on Jupiter.tube and JBLive.tv.